have a vault of hundreds of unreleased songs. Are you ever going to release them and let us hear?
One day, someone will release them. I don't know that I'll get to release them.
Prince, the innovative, one-of-a-kind artist who's given us so much great music over the decades, has been found dead.
Was this a tragic accident, or are there darker reasons for his mysterious death?
You know what the elevator is, right?
No.
I said, no, what's the elevator? He said, well, the elevator is the devil. For me, it was like really haunting when I read that he was found in an elevator.
It appears Katt Williams was right all along. Shocking, unseen footage of Prince's rder has surfaced, and it's pointing straight at Jay-Z and Diddy.
I understand what it's worth doing when the industry is canceling one black guy. I know what happens when they are going to elevate another.
With Katt's warnings now impossible to ignore, it would be safe to say that Hollywood just got a whole lot darker. And this new evidence has people questioning everything we thought we knew.
Diddy and Jay-Z are monsters. And the victim-making machine kept going on.
And to think it isn't just Diddy who got roped into this mess this time. High best pal Jay-Z might be going down too. Could two of the biggest names in the industry really be involved in such a sinister plot? What were they hiding, and why is this footage just now coming to light? The truth is, Katt Williams knew a lot from the start, but only recently has he decided to open this plethora of secrets.
I know so many things I shouldn't know, and they all know it. They all know it.
According to Katt Williams' shocking interview on Club Shay Shay, Prince supposedly had damaging footage of both Jay-Z and Diddy that could have destroyed their careers. While nothing has been confirmed, many fans point to Prince's mysterious final days as evidence that someone wanted to silence him. And why wouldn't they think that? Just weeks before his death, Prince posted a cryptic message on social media that now seems like a chilling premonition, just when you thought you were safe. At the time, many fans dismissed it as typical Prince mystique, but in light of recent revelations, this message takes on a much darker significance. After regaining control of his master recordings from Warner Bros. In 2014, Prince had achieved a hard-won victory. Yet exactly 2 years later, he would be found dead at Paisley Park.
Well, this is certainly the sort of news that you don't want to believe is true, but Prince has died at the age of 57 years old.
In those final years, Prince's behavior shifted dramatically. He implemented strict new security protocols at Paisley Park and became intensely selective about his inner circle. But did any of it help? No.
That also really concerned me because it made me think that, wow, so you mean you do all these things to take care of yourself and you die so young?
His concerns extended beyond personal safety. In his final weeks, Prince had serious conversations with close associates about what he perceived as dangerous elements within the music industry. He spoke candidly about powerful figures and the consequences of challenging them. His particular focus was on controversial industry practices, including exclusive parties where young artists felt pressured to attend to advance their careers. A crucial development emerged in Prince's relationship with Jay-Z. What began as a professional partnership deteriorated significantly in the months before Prince's death, leading to tensions over his music catalog, the very thing he had fought so long to protect.
And I did all the work. I created it, so I felt like it should belong to me. That said, the companies felt otherwise.
These circumstances raise essential questions. What prompted Prince to fortify his security so drastically? What information made him so concerned about industry practices? And what triggered that final cryptic warning about safety? The answers may lie in examining Prince's dealings with Jay-Z and a streaming agreement that would later spark major legal disputes. But to understand the full picture, we need to look closer at how this business relationship unraveled. When Jay-Z announced Tidal as the new home for Prince's music catalog, fans celebrated what appeared to be a victory for artist ownership. Yet within months, Prince would discover something that made him regret trusting his fellow artist with his life's work. The initial Tidal agreement called for Prince to stream one album exclusively on the platform for 90 days. Prince saw the platform's promised artist-friendly model as aligned with his long-held values about creative control. Tidal is a new company. It's brand new, Prince explained to Ebony months before his death. When there's a company like that, or the OWN network, situations where we finally get into a position to run things, we all should help. But the seemingly straightforward deal soon changed course. Multiple sources reported that Tidal began pushing for full ownership rights to Prince's entire catalog, far beyond the original streaming agreement. This alarmed Prince, who had spent years battling to regain control of his master recordings from Warner Bros. After Prince's death, Tidal began streaming his complete catalog without permission, despite the original agreement covering just one album. This led Prince's estate to file a copyright infringement lawsuit against Roc Nation, igniting a fierce legal battle over the artist's music. Jay-Z's response came through his lyrics 1 month after Prince's death. Prince left his masters where they are safe and sound. We are never going to let the elevator take him down. While framed as a tribute, many interpreted these words as a dig, since Prince was found dead in an elevator. Not to forget, he had a rather suspicious view of them.
The time when I was with him privately, he said, "You know what the elevator is, right?" No. I said, "No, what's the elevator?" He said, "Well, the elevator is the devil."
As Katt Williams observed, streaming platforms should function as delivery services without claiming ownership of the art they distribute. The Tidal situation exemplified how even artist-run platforms could perpetuate the same struggles for control that Prince had faced throughout his career. This conflict with Tidal marked one of Prince's final stands for artistic independence. But to understand the depth of his resistance to surrendering his catalog, we must return to where it began, with a teenage Prince signing his first Warner Bros. Contract, unaware of the battles ahead. In 1977, Warner Bros. Offered Prince full creative control over his first 3 albums, an unprecedented deal for an 18-year-old artist. The young musical prodigy signed immediately, unaware that this decision would spark a decades-long battle that would challenge the entire music industry. As Prince's popularity grew, Warner Bros. Steadily increased their control. Subtle suggestions about release schedules evolved into strict mandates over his music distribution. The situation reached a crisis point in 1992 when Prince discovered the true implications of his new $100 million contract.
And they would always hold this contract up and say, "Well, you signed it." And I say, "Well, I understand that. It's not like I want to leave. I just want to, talk about this thing and see if we can't make it more fair."
Despite its generous appearance, the agreement gave Warner permanent ownership of his master recordings. Prince responded with a bold public protest, appearing with "slave" written across his face. His message resonated throughout the industry. If you don't own your masters, your master owns you. He viewed the contract system as fundamentally exploitative, trapping artists in agreements that stripped away their creative identity.
And as long as you're signed to a contract, you're going to take a minority share of the winnings. A select few of us will do well. The majority will not.
In 1993, Prince changed his name to an unpronounceable symbol, a strategic move to circumvent Warner's control over his birth name. The media's inability to print the symbol led them to call him the artist formerly known as Prince. But the message was clear. He would not be bound by conventional industry rules.
It sort of divorced me from the past and all the hang-ups that go along with it.
Why then did you choose the artist formerly known as?
Well, I didn't choose that. That was chosen
for you.
Yeah.
Prince received concerning warnings about Warner Bros.' extensive influence in the industry. Artists who challenged the label faced serious career consequences. The label's reach extended beyond music into various entertainment sectors, including connections to emerging industry figures like Sean Diddy Combs. The struggle continued until 2014, when Prince finally regained control of his masters. Throughout the battle, he consistently warned other artists about protecting their creative rights. Meanwhile, Diddy built his own power base within the industry system, forming alliances that would eventually intersect with Prince's story in significant ways. By alliances, we mean Diddy and Jay-Z, the most dangerous duo against Prince. But he wants one to back down, and Katt made sure everyone knew that.
They've been a group. Everybody knows that. They've been aligned. If you stand against them, then they sometimes have a problem. But
in 2005, while Prince was still fighting for control of his music, Diddy formed a joint venture with Warner Music Group, the very company Prince had been battling for years. Warner's CEO Liar Cohen publicly praised the partnership as Bad Boy Records joined Warner, directly opposing Prince's mission for artistic independence. It seemed like Prince had specific concerns about Diddy's growing influence in the industry, particularly regarding exclusive gatherings that younger artists felt pressured to attend to advance their careers. These freak-off parties served a darker purpose beyond industry networking. Prince allegedly possessed detailed information about these events that made him increasingly determined to warn other artists about the dangers they faced. The severity of Prince's concerns gained validation when federal investigations began examining allegations and racketeering connected to these industry gatherings. Prince's warnings carried particular weight due to his specific knowledge of Diddy's business practices and private gatherings. While the exact details remain sealed, the information Prince held made him a potential threat to powerful industry figures. This knowledge may have contributed to his increasing isolation in his final years. Just like people have been commenting, Prince knew too much and wasn't afraid to speak up, while another added, chemtrails are a real thing. Prince was definitely onto something. Following Prince's death, Diddy's public statement about being heartbroken drew criticism, particularly from Katt Williams, who highlighted how Diddy's actions had consistently worked against Prince's interests. This disconnect between public statements and private dealings exposed deeper issues within the entertainment industry's power structure. The conflict between Prince and Diddy represented a fundamental divide in the music industry between artistic freedom and corporate control.
There's a disintegration going on that we really have to address.
Prince's warnings about Diddy's business practices pointed to troubling aspects of the entertainment world, particularly regarding exclusive gatherings where young artists found themselves vulnerable. These private parties became central to understanding why Prince felt compelled to protect others from the industry's dangerous elements.
So I think that we should address this as a community as to what it's doing to the culture.
While the industry's elite hosted parties that preyed on young talent, Prince created exclusive gatherings called 3,121 that became a sanctuary for artists seeking to escape the darker side of fame. What happened behind those doors would expose a deep conflict within the music industry. The 3,121 parties provided safe spaces where creativity flourished without exploitation. These invite-only gatherings attracted artists seeking genuine connection and collaboration, far from the predatory atmosphere of typical industry events. Attendees focused purely on artistic expression and mutual support, sharing ideas freely without fear of manipulation. The industry's notorious freak-off parties, particularly those associated with Diddy, operated differently. At these events, young artists faced pressure to participate in illicit activities, with drugs and becoming common elements. We didn't know this before, but now we do, thanks to the recent allegations on Diddy that has brought concrete evidence to the public.
The indictment alleges that Combs threatened and coerced victims to get them to participate in the freak-offs.
Many felt their careers depended on attending these gatherings, creating a cycle of manipulation. By establishing 3,121 as an alternative to exploitation-filled industry parties, Prince challenged the established power structure. Katt Williams later suggested that Prince's creation of these safe spaces made him increasingly dangerous to certain industry figures as he directly threatened their system of control. As artists shared their experiences at 3,121 gatherings, a clearer picture emerged of the industry's darker practices.
He was so good at that, man. So good at taking a line that maybe people would say and then making it into something that everybody now associates with him, you know.
Prince's understanding of these activities, combined with his influence and independence, positioned him as a potential threat to those who benefited from the existing system. Prince used his influence to warn other artists about certain industry gatherings, protecting younger talent from the exploitation he'd witnessed. His protective stance intensified pressure from industry powers, contributing to his growing isolation in his final days. The battle between these contrasting environments, Prince's artist-focused sanctuary versus the industry's exploitative gatherings, revealed fundamental tensions in the music industry. This conflict set the stage for the mysterious circumstances surrounding Prince's final days, as he continued challenging a system he believed harmed young artists. The story of Prince's 3,121 parties, emerged as a crucial chapter in his later years. His effort to create an alternative to the industry's dangerous social scene sparked resistance from powerful figures, leading to consequences that would shape his final chapter. These parallel worlds, one built on artistic freedom, the other on control, illuminated the forces Prince confronted in his last days. His commitment to protecting artists through 3121 ultimately placed him at odds with industry powers, creating tensions that would prove significant in understanding his story's end. The discovery of counterfeit pills throughout Prince's home raised immediate concerns, especially given his well-documented anti-drug stance. No doctor had prescribed these medications, creating a stark contrast with his usual careful approach to health. Prince, quote, "S initial experience with pain medication stemmed from necessity. Years of energetic performances and his signature high-heeled shoes had caused severe hip and ankle problems requiring medical intervention. He accepted pain management under medical supervision to continue performing. Investigators uncovered prescription medications scattered throughout his home, many outside their original containers. The disturbing revelation came when testing showed many were counterfeits, a detail that emerged after Prince's death. The toxicology report contained a devastating finding. Prince had exceedingly high concentrations of fentanyl in his system. This synthetic opioid had been hidden in pills he believed were Vicodin. The presence of these contaminated medications throughout Paisley Park indicated a systemic problem rather than an isolated incident. In the weeks before his death, Prince had sought professional help, believing he needed treatment for Vicodin dependency.
Now, a prominent attorney here in the Twin Cities reveals one of his clients, a national addiction doctor, had made plans to visit Prince.
He consulted with Dr. Michael Schulenberg for opioid withdrawal, anemia, and fatigue, actively pursuing legitimate medical care while unknowingly consuming dangerous counterfeit substances. The investigation into these medications' source produced no conclusive results. Prince's family filed wrongful death claims against medical providers, arguing that treatment failures contributed to his death, though courts ultimately dismissed these claims. The scene at Paisley Park presented a puzzling contradiction. Prince maintained strict control over his environment and health choices, yet investigators found numerous unidentified medications throughout his home. This unusual situation sparked deeper questions about access to his medication supply. The official ruling of accidental overdose left critical questions unresolved. The presence of fentanyl-laced counterfeit pills in the home of someone known for carefully monitoring his health pointed to gaps in security. As investigators dug deeper, they discovered key evidence had begun disappearing, just as it might reveal who had access to Prince's medication supply. As detectives investigated Prince's death, clear signs of a compromised investigation emerged, and everyone noticed.
Something is not right. So when I heard about that, I just got a really sinking feeling, because that just, didn't make sense to me.
The Carver County Sheriff's Office initially assembled a dedicated team to trace the source of the fatal counterfeit pills, conducting interviews and gathering evidence from Paisley Park. However, the investigation soon showed troubling irregularities. Key security footage from Paisley Park disappeared, recordings that could have identified who had access to Prince and potentially supplied the counterfeit medication found throughout his property. Those closest to Prince provided conflicting testimony about his final weeks. Some witnesses described him as paranoid and deteriorating, while others maintained he was energetic and focused on upcoming projects. The investigation overlooked critical events preceding Prince's death. He had canceled several shows and made an emergency landing due to health issues.
Where there was a forced landing, allegedly because he lost consciousness.
We're requesting an ambulance to meet an officer at Gate 1.
Yet investigators didn't fully examine these incidents or their connection to his increasing industry conflicts. Instead, authorities rushed to conclude their work, focusing narrowly on the accidental overdose narrative despite the complex circumstances surrounding his death.
We had a lot of pills that were scattered around, and the Watson 853 is stamped on these pills. And so Watson 853 can be a legitimate pain reliever, similar to Vicodin.
The Carver County attorney's statement claimed there was no reliable evidence showing how Prince obtained the fentanyl-laced counterfeit Vicodin. When his family pursued wrongful death claims seeking answers, these cases were dismissed without proper examination. This is a high-profile case for us, but life in the county continues to go on, and there are other cases we have going on, the attorney said at the time. The investigation systematically avoided questioning influential music industry figures, despite Prince's documented conflict conflicts with powerful players and his efforts to expose corrupt practices. The flawed investigation of Prince's death marked the beginning of a pattern. When Michael Jackson warned they're going to K me months before his death, many dismissed it as paranoia.
Told me over and over and over. When he first told me, LaToya, they're going to I said, who, Michael? First, I thought you're Michael Jackson. Nobody in their right mind would ever think of doing anything like this to you.
Yet his words gained significance as other legendary artists met similar fates after confronting industry powers. Michael Jackson, Whitney Houston, and Prince died during periods of active resistance against major record labels and industry practices. Jackson challenged Sony Music executives and led protests while fighting for his catalog rights.
I own half of Sony's publishing and I'm leaving them, and they're very angry at me because of it. But
Houston spoke openly about industry pressures and control as she worked to reclaim her independence. Prince gathered evidence about systematic exploitation while warning younger artists about predatory contracts. The circumstances of their deaths raised significant questions. Jackson's propofol overdose contradicted his documented caution with medications. Houston's drowning involved unexplained substance combinations. Prince, despite his clean living reputation, allegedly died from counterfeit pills without a prescription. Each death occurred at pivotal moments. Jackson during his This Is It tour preparations, Houston amid her comeback, and Prince while investigating industry corruption. The investigations into these deaths revealed concerning patterns. Evidence disappeared. Key witnesses remained unquestioned, and cases closed quickly despite unresolved issues. Kanye West later addressed these deaths directly, suggesting both Jackson and Prince were K-ed to protect industry interests.
A lot of people come up missing. Feels like it might be a lot of that in order to control, traumatize.
Katt Williams' statements about Prince's death highlighted a broader concern. Artists who challenge major record labels face serious risks. The timing of these deaths, combined with each artist's position of influence and access to damaging information about industry practices, suggests coordinated action rather than coincidence. Current artists and industry insiders continue uncovering new evidence about threats against those who question established practices. These revelations paint a troubling picture of systematic suppression, where speaking out carries increasingly serious consequences. As more information surfaces, the connections between these deaths and industry conflicts become more difficult to dismiss. The pattern persists today, with new evidence emerging about threats against those who challenge industry practices. However, investigating these connections carries significant risks, creating a climate of fear that helps maintain industry control. While the public focused on official narratives about accidental overdoses, evidence emerged of systematic efforts to silence those with knowledge of Prince's final days.
What I know is that he was really health conscious. He was a vegan. He didn't abuse alcohol. I didn't know of him abusing.
People who attempted to speak up faced direct consequences, from professional setbacks to personal threats. Investigations into Prince's death encountered specific roadblocks. Key witnesses became uncooperative or altered their testimonies when questioned about the counterfeit pills that led to his death. Law enforcement's inability to trace the source of these medications suggests deliberate interference with the investigation. Media coverage reinforced a singular narrative by emphasizing the accidental overdose while overlooking crucial inconsistencies. Reports rarely address the absence of a fentanyl prescription in Prince's documented pain management history or examined how he obtained the counterfeit medication that proved fatal. Katt Williams brought renewed scrutiny to these circumstances, claiming possession of evidence that implicates industry figures in Prince's death. His statement about Big D deviants catching hell in 2024 Inches points to potential revelations about powerful individuals' involvement. The legal proceedings surrounding Prince's estate and Roc Nation reflect these broader patterns of obstruction. Court cases face continuous delays, with critical evidence becoming increasingly inaccessible, and key witnesses notably absent from testimonies. Kanye West's public statements have reinforced these concerns, drawing comparisons between Prince's death and similar patterns in the hip-hop industry.
Saying they could control Shaq, they could control Charles Barkley, they could control LeBron James. they can control Jay-Z and Beyonce.
This high-profile support has encouraged others to question the official narrative. Despite documented risks to those who speak out, current investigators describe specific forms of interference: technical disruptions during research, surveillance of their activities, and direct pressure to abandon inquiries. These tactics extend to potential witnesses, who report receiving warnings before scheduled testimonies. As 2024 approaches, those holding information about Prince's death face mounting pressure to maintain silence. However, the increasing number of industry insiders willing to challenge the official account suggests the truth about Prince's death may soon emerge, regardless of efforts to suppress it. Evidence points to coordinated actions by music industry powers to control the narrative around Prince's death. Yet as more witnesses come forward, this carefully maintained version of events shows signs of unraveling, bringing us closer to understanding what truly happened during Prince's final days. The investigation continues as new sources step forward, despite the risks. Their testimonies could reveal how industry figures orchestrated both Prince's death and its aftermath, reshaping our understanding of this tragic event. Having turned down millions from Diddy and witnessed Prince's struggles firsthand, Katt Williams says he's been preparing for this moment since age 12. His recent warning about industry misconduct and corruption points to extensive evidence he's gathered over the years. Williams and Prince maintained a close friendship for decades, during which Williams documented their interactions and conversations.
I knew him my entire life. Through all of his changes, I was able to assist him many times.
Prince, who Williams describes as a strategic thinker, shared detailed information about concerning practices within the music industry, particularly regarding certain high-profile executives and their business operations.
He was a high thinker, and a guy that was always 30 steps ahead of whatever the curve was.
The evidence Williams has accumulated appears substantial. He claims to possess footage and documentation that could reveal critical information about the circumstances of Prince's death, along with proof of systematic industry misconduct.
Because in 30 years, I've done nothing but collect information, knowledge, and your secrets.
This evidence, according to Williams, demonstrates criminal activities that powerful figures have worked to suppress. As Williams faces increasing pressure, he's continued to speak out, particularly about Diddy's controversial parties and business practices. He's publicly acknowledged refusing significant financial offers from Diddy, maintaining these were attempts to secure his silence.
Now, I've had to turn down $50 million 4 times. 4 times, just to protect my integrity and that hole I was telling you about.
Williams suggests his revelations could trigger broader industry exposure, especially as legal pressures mount on certain executives. The evidence he's gathered reportedly documents patterns of behavior leading up to Prince's final days, including Prince's expressed concerns about his safety to close associates. To protect this information, Williams has established comprehensive security protocols, with multiple copies stored in secure locations. This approach ensures the evidence remains protected regardless of circumstances, reflecting the serious nature of his claims about industry practices and Prince's death. The evidence Williams holds points to deeper issues within the music industry's power structure, suggesting artists who challenge established systems face severe consequences. His documented proof appears to connect Prince's death to broader industry practices, indicating why certain powerful figures might have sought to silence him. As the situation unfolds, the critical question remains whether this evidence will finally expose the truth about Prince's death, or if those implicated will prevent its release. The outcome may hinge on Williams' ability to safely present his evidence and the public's readiness to confront these industry realities. That's it for today, folks. Until next time, goodbye.